So welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews where we discuss with local business leaders, their backgrounds, their successes and challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And today I'm delighted to have with us Christian Mercer, who's founder and CEO at Positive Plus One. So firstly, Christian, welcome and thanks so much for coming on board. And if you'd like to introduce yourself and Positive Plus One to the audience, that would be great.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Thank you for having me, Chris. Always a pleasure to sort of be here and to see you, of course. So Positive Plus One was born out of trying to help a friend, really. So Positive Plus One is a dating app turned social network for people living with HIV. About 7 years ago, a friend of mine, a work colleague, started going AWOL from work. And before it sort of moved up to the food chain, I reached out to him and was like, tell me what's going on. I went to go see him, and it was at that point that he disclosed to me that he'd found out that he was living with HIV. And I just did what any real friend would do and just feel like, look, how can I help? And he was sort of facing a couple of challenges, but the main ones being, how do you tell someone, if you even tell them at all, and how do you meet somebody, which sent me on a long journey. And I reached out to all of the major charities. I was living in London at the time. Reached out to all of the major charities. I went and sat in their support group sessions and asked what is effectively my target audience, the people I'm trying to help, about their experiences in dating. What they wanted to see from a platform of this kind, what they didn't want to see, most importantly, and from there built a real picture, and here we are.
Amazing. We good to give you a little bit of a run through of some of the things we've achieved. But before we start that, can you tell us a little bit more about your background, how you got into business, and what? Well, obviously we understand why this particular one, but what was your background to leading up to that?
Yeah, so I actually had a sporting background initially. I played rugby over in Australia. Then I came back. I went into recruitment. Then I became an account manager, business development manager, and eventually moved to live into London, working for quite a big telecoms company. And I was the UK and European national account manager trainer. I was actually teaching people my method. Which is great, and it was at that time, the colleague that I mentioned before, we worked together, and obviously that's where the Positive Plus One journey started as well. I then moved on to a startup company. I got headhunted for a startup company in a business development role, and got made redundant a week before Christmas, actually.
Great.
Which was a bit of a wild time in my life, but yeah. I think there's certainly been some of those steps that have happened have pushed me even more towards making Positive Plus One work. So yeah, it's not been without its challenges, but it's been a good ride.
I can imagine. So growing up, was this the sort of thing you expected yourself to be doing, or what was the dream?
God, I love cars. I still love cars now. So I thought, well, I'll probably be a mechanic. And then I did work experience mechanics for 2 weeks, and I thought, there's not a prayer I'm going to do this. My dad really wanted me to go into a trade. He's a tradesman himself, and that's sort of blue collar background, and it's security, it's safe. And I remember actually saying to him, I don't want to be a trader. I want to be a businessman. And he sort of laughed at me, and he was like, what business? And I went, I don't know yet. I have no idea. But I knew, I don't know how I knew, but I knew that that's that was going to be it for me.
Brilliant. Love it. Absolutely love it. You had that sort of entrepreneurial spirit right from the start. You just knew. And it's the point, it's the identity, isn't it? The business is less relevant ultimately, but it's what it needs to be. So going back to Positive Plus One, if you talk about the journey, what are some of the biggest issues you've had to overcome in the growth of the business?
God, this will probably come as a bit of a surprise to some people. But given that the HIV community tend to be quite discriminated against in terms of stigma, being a heterosexual, white guy who isn't living with HIV, to some extent, I was actually discriminated against myself, and they only saw me as maybe somebody's just trying to profiteer off of this community rather than the sort of the bigger impacts that I was trying to achieve.
Yes.
And so I had to overcome that first and foremost, and that involved a lot of sort of desk research, a lot of calls, a lot of going to meet people, and really just reiterating what it was that I was trying to build. And then, you know, look, I knew nothing about HIV. I knew nothing about building a platform. You know, I come from a corporate sales background. So I had to learn and acquire the knowledge in order to make that successful, which took a lot of time. And then going through a number of sort of different developers and you know, people you think are the right person at the time, as sort of any business does do. So yeah, you know, I've had to overcome all of those, you know, typical things. But yeah, I think probably most importantly, I probably had to overcome certain things with myself in terms of how I communicate with people.
Yeah.
You know, a salesperson has got sales patter, but if you've ever worked in a sales environment and a bullpen, then you will know that there's not much empathy, or there's not much care for what other people have got going around them. And certainly post-COVID, you have to understand people's situations. People are far more intentional with their time now, and empathize with what people are going through. And that's been something that I've had to learn from myself, and I'm so glad that I have done. It certainly made my wider relationships better as well.
Right.
But yeah,
wonderful. I think you know, knowing you a little bit, the passion and the sincerity with which, you know, you're trying to achieve what you're trying to achieve, you know, just does come across really strongly, and I'm sure that's helped you. I'm interested because obviously you primarily, it's an app, it's a technology, and I know you don't have a particularly technology based background. What would you see what have been any of the challenges, if any, about not being technical, but also what are the advantages of not being technical?
I mean, I think firstly the language. You know, having a conversation with a tech person, a CTO, in your infancy of that world is mind blowing. And then, but I you know, sometimes you sort of your technical people and your creative people who work in the design sort of aspect, they sort of live within the matrix. And what I've sort of brought to the table, or at least what I believe I bring to the table, is that human aspect, is that customer facing aspect, you know. So while something in a binary code looks seamless, how does the end user actually, you know, work with that product? How does that work? And I think bringing that to the table certainly gives me an advantage. But you know, it creates a nice rounded team. That's the whole idea.
Brilliant. Yeah, great point. Have all those different points of view and capabilities around you really key. And what are some of the biggest things you've learned about business as you've grown your career?
Oh gosh, where do I begin? I think probably a really key thing was that plans can be changed. You know, and I've mentioned this before. Starting with a really clear end goal in mind is super important. You know, you wouldn't start a game of football without knowing that there was a whistle at the end of 90 minutes. So whatever it is that we're trying to go, that, you know, have that end goal in mind, and how you sort of get there can change. You know, you might have a plan in your head, and I think that's a really key thing. Rather than sort of being knocked back by it, just be prepared to be agile.
Yeah.
You know, and whilst you are a smaller company, that's far easier. But yeah, I think that's probably the first thing. I think I was very self-critical initially, and I was like, right, this is my plan, and if it doesn't go to that plan, then maybe my idea is going to fail, and that's just not the case. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. I love the analogy, or the thing about the whistle goes in 90 minutes, and have we got where we're going to go? I know I've worked with several businesses, interestingly enough, that where the owners have not been clear on the goals, and when we actually worked out where they're actually already there. They'd already actually won, and they were still running. The analogy I use often is running a race, and they've already won. They've hit the win line. They're still running, and it's like, well, if that's what your win is, you're there, and it's quite funny, isn't it? But it's being clear on what the goals are, what win looks like, and what.
Yeah, of course. And I think from another aspect as well, if you get to that 70-minute mark, you get that 70% of the way, and if you know where your end goal is, that's probably going to help you, motivate you, and carry you through to completion, to the very end. Knowing that you've only got 20 minutes left, and that's it. You've done the most part. Like, just get to the line. And certainly for me, that makes a massive impact. And they don't have to be massive exit strategies. They can be sort of, right, okay, what's your next 90-day goal? Like, what's that? What does that look like? And and just remembering to celebrate those wins, which is something you taught me, Chris. And celebrating a win doesn't have to be taking yourself on holiday or going out for a few beers. It can just be a moment to just self-reflect and just give yourself a pat on the back, and be proud of where you've come from and where you are now.
Brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. I think celebrations, for me, as you say, it's external. I might do something or reward myself, but it's also just that internal feeling, isn't it? That's it. How cool was that? And the challenge we have as entrepreneurial people, we're always looking at what we haven't done and what's next to do. And it's having that time just to go, that was great. Well done. Yeah.
I read something recently, actually, which was sort of quite profound, really. Regardless of whatever it is that you win, your body secretes serotonin and oxytocin when you are, it only has so much to release. So regardless of whether it's a Ferrari or whether it's just rewarding yourself with a self pat on the back, that feeling, that chemical release is always the same. So you can feel just as much achievement and joy by just giving yourself a minute to just self-reflect. So brilliant. I think that's super powerful.
Yeah, I mean, makes perfect sense. And what would you say some of the biggest things? Sorry, you've got a sporting background, and we're a business coaching organisation. So I'm keen to know who the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's in business, sports, or just in life in general.
Yeah. So I suppose I've been quite fortunate in terms of having mentors around me. I mean, I was sort of implementing mentors from the age of sort of 13, maybe to 14, without even realizing. And my sort of first mentor was the local pizza shop owner, who sort of grew it into being a pizza shop and restaurant, and brilliant. I ended up working for him and learning from him. And, and I've found new people along the way. I've had some amazing mentors that have been, business partners with Tony Robbins and the likes of Grant Cardone. Oh gosh, who's been my most influential is a really tricky one to answer, because I think it's all very relative. So a certain coach might say the exact things that you need to hear at the time. Now, that's not to say that the other coach, what they're saying is not relevant, is not irrelevant, should I say, but it just doesn't apply to you at that moment in your life. So, I think the right coach sort of tells you and helps you clarify what you already know all the time, and then helps you maybe, just push the needle just that little bit more.
Brilliant. But yeah, absolutely. It's that setting the bar, consistently hitting the bar a little bit higher. I think there's an element from my perspective, because I'm coached myself, even though I am a coach. None of us can achieve our true potential without being held accountable by somebody else. And even though I know a lot of, I study a lot about coaching and business coaching in general, I can't do it by myself. And I think that's the key thing that we all learn.
And to be honest with you, Chris, that's exactly the reason why I started, why I started working with yourself. Obviously we got along on a personal level, but really, I think the novelty post-COVID of working at home was worn off. I did struggle at times, even though I do try to work to completion as often as possible, and I try to plan as much as possible. Holding myself accountable, it seems to be far easier to let myself down at times rather than to let someone else down. So having someone like yourself there, who's gonna, I regularly check in with, and who's gonna say, right, okay, well, this is what we planned. How far have you got? I know that I don't want to be somebody who lets anybody down.
Yep.
So even if it comes to a couple of days before and I know we've got to sit down, I'd be like, right, I really need to get that. I need to get that done, because I don't want to turn up and in front of anybody empty-handed. Just it's absolutely not. So it certainly helps from that point of view and that accountability point of view, for sure.
It's funny. I was talking to somebody the other day about the world's top executive coach. He's renowned to be the top executive coach, a guy called Marshall Goldsmith, who he coaches the president of Ford's Motor Company, or has done Ford's Motor Company, Pfizer's Pharmaceuticals, the president of the World Bank, Dr. Kim. And he himself, he has a measurement system that every day he records a number of things. One is, how much time have I done? How much have I done to add meaning, add value, to be happy? There's a number of things, but he himself has an accountability issue. So he has a lady calls him up every day at 5 o'clock and asks him the question. That's all she does, asks the questions and takes the score. But he knows that without that somebody calling him, he probably wouldn't be doing it now. And it's just fascinating how just at that base level, that really, really helped. And he knows how much it helps him, and it's worth paying, worth paying for, which is fascinating.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Definitely helps.
I'm keen to know if you have picked up from any of the great mentors that you've had, any favourite quotes or sayings that you fall back on in good times or challenging times.
Yeah, I think, look, there's one, unfortunately, wasn't my mentor as much as I'd have loved that, but Steve Jobs, is one of his famous ones. Is stay hungry, stay foolish, and being hungry towards your goal is one thing, but keeping that childlike ability in certain senses, and being foolish and not being afraid to take kids. Kids are fearless, right? So I love that element, and just have fun with it. Whatever it might be. Know that. I mean, most people will know this, but 9 out of 10 ideas or routes probably won't work. But so long as you can have fun with that and be like, let's try it anyway, and having that sort of foolish mentality, and still, if it don't work, it's fine. I'll learn from it, can continue, and that for me, I feel like is probably a really, really key one. I mean, there's tons that I could go through, some sort of small snippets, but yeah, certainly the one that stands out for me is stay hungry, stay foolish.
Brilliant. Funny enough, I remember now. You now recall that. Probably about 15, 20 years ago, I heard it was a software entrepreneur speak, and he asked the audience. He said, "What age do you think is the perfect age for an entrepreneur, for a business owner?" And 40, 30, 25, whatever it would be. And he said, I think it's 9 years old. 9 years old. He said, you're totally inquisitive. The dreams haven't been hit by image of reality, and you don't take no for an answer.
Yeah, so true. so true.
It's brilliant, and therefore, I tell it's almost like be a 9-year-old, because that's a cool age. Because the other thing, I remember hearing Brad Sugar speak quite some time ago, and he talked about the challenge most of us have is when we're kids, our dreams are huge, and unfortunately, because of what we perceive to reality, most of us reduce our dreams to fit our reality rather than increase our reality to fit our dreams. And and it's a hard thing to do, but it's I think that all sits with the Steve Jobs quote. So that's
yeah. There's another one actually, which is Winston Churchill, which is, if you're going through hell, keep going. which is brilliant. And actually, at times, when things are great, it's sort of the stay hungry, stay foolish. When things are terrible, and at times they will be terrible, if you're going through hell, keep going. And look, I love that one actually. So yeah, there you go. They're my top two.
Thank you. Brilliant. I'll keep that. I'll definitely got those. I'll keep those with me. And what would you say you've learned about yourself as you've developed?
Oh gosh, I think I can quite happily and proudly say that I'm a very resilient character, and I, you know, I will persevere. I think, like I said, sort of, you know, early on, the thing that I'm probably most proud of is the level of language that I've learned to, you know, and developed, and because, you know, speaking to a team, and you know, mental health is a really sort of key issue, you know, and always has been, but isn't now being spoke about. So understanding that, and you know, and understanding that, you know, we're always being prepared to try different things, whether that be a 4-day work week and giving people 3 days, whether that be a hybrid sort of role or a complete remote role. But ultimately, you know, the end goal for myself as the owner of the business is we work to completion. Now, you know, I don't want to and sort of, you know, you managing expectations and stuff like that. So I think really developing that sort of that level of language and empathy is probably been the, you know, the most powerful thing that I've learned. And I'd probably go so far as saying that, you know, all my team are very, very happy working with me. At no point do I think that they're like, you know, Christian's been a bit of a bit of a so and so. I'm not sure if I could swear on this. So
You can do whatever you like, my friend. That's good.
And then, yeah, I mean, look, you know, sort of my story with Positive Plus One has been, you know, really, you know, really great story, and it seemingly we've gone through some turbulent times, but you know, as you know, Chris, you know, one of my other businesses, a salon and tattoo studio that I owned, burnt down. So it's a bit of a bipolar roller coaster, as I sort of coined the term, because there's one was the demise, the other one was sort of going up. So you're in sort of two places, and you know, I think being able to ride that storm out, you know, and having that resilience to do so, and then come out the other end is been something that, you know, I'm proud of, and I'm glad that I'm also glad that I went through it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we know each other a little bit. And you know, you went through some really tough times, and it is, you know, I've seen your resilience, and I think it's a mark of, you know, of many successful people, that we need to have that and have the confidence that we are going to get there, as you say, keep going. In very difficult times, not just business wise, but this is all right in the middle of COVID and lockdown. And you know, it is easy to give up. But it's great to see that you've pulled through to now, and it'd be great to know a little bit. You paint the picture for us, the future. What does it look like, and what are the main challenges you face, if any?
Yeah, I think so. I couldn't be happy with where things are with Positive Plus One at the minute, which is, you know, a brilliant thing for me to be able to say. I think some of the challenges that I'm facing at the moment are, obviously it's important to grow, but there also comes a problem with growing too quickly and not having the right people or the right things in place. Yeah. So, and then the challenge that you face just before that is actually knowing what it is that you need, and the people that you need, and what exactly those roles are, and what exactly the pieces of the puzzles are. So I'm going through that journey right now, and I'm having to almost put myself in those positions, those roles and responsibilities, to get a broader understanding of what it is that I need. And then, you know, we are set to scale very, very quickly. And, you know, and with that comes a multitude of, you know, pros and a multitude of cons as well. And, you know, one of the key ones would be, let's say we go from, you know, the number that we're at now to 1 million users on the platform, and grow as quickly as, you know, the likes of someone like Facebook did. You need to have a customer service team that's bulletproof.
Yes.
You know, because as we all know, reputation is everything. And I've been told this by people who have, you know, have spoke to me about maybe acquiring, you know, Positive Plus One further down the line, and reputation is everything. You know, and we want every physical and verbal touch point that a consumer goes through, I want to be seamless. I want it to be absolutely on the money. I want it to be a pleasant experience everywhere that we go. So that's what I'm trying to do right now. I'm very, very excited for the future. Oh, gosh, just because, you know, we're redeveloping the product right now. You know, we are, and that's looking amazing. We're developing the brand and really building the brand out, because it's, you know, as I said in the very, very beginning, we started out as a dating platform, and now we're becoming a social platform where people can find friendships as well as, you know, romantic relationships, and they can find support and education and all of those kind of things that this community need. So yeah, God, I'm looking for, if anyone's listening to this, and I need a content manager, I need a data scientist. You know, so if you are, get in touch, please. I'd love to speak to you.
Brilliant.
Yeah, you know, look, we're very, very, very ready for takeoff, and let me tell you, it's going to take off like a rocket when it does. So, yeah.
Absolutely no doubt of that. So it's very, very exciting time. So I'm sure it'd be great to swing back in probably not 12, probably 6 months, because I know how fast things are going to move, and just check in and see what the next stages are. So yeah, I can't wait. And just to wrap up with just two or three quick questions I'd like to ask you. One is, what would you say to anyone that was thinking of going into business right
now? Okay, so I can tell you firsthand that I relaunched the salon at the back end of the sort of the second to last lockdown, thinking that we were going to be completely out of the lockdowns, and obviously now we're going into a bit of quite a lot of a financial crisis, you know, which can put a dampener on things, you know. But I can tell you that salon is now making money, and it has been tough on the way there, but you know, getting it to that point, and it's taken longer than I anticipated, but it is now at a point where, you know, it's profitable and it's self-sustainable, which is the best. Is the golden aim. But I think for anyone coming into business now, gosh, get your financial forecasting in place. You know, having a sort of a really a clear idea in terms of what it is that you want to build is a great thing, but you know, your financial forecasts are as tedious as they can be. They are very, very important. Again, don't expect that to go to plan. I can tell you firsthand that, you know, some of my financial forecasts have been up here and have probably been actually more down there. And you know, you have to put in your contingency. I used to put in a 20% contingency. I now put a sort of a 30 to 40% contingency, if I'm being honest. Right. But yeah, I think ultimately, look, don't be disheartened. You know, go with your gut. Don't wait. There's never a right time to do it. Know when to quit, and that's a very sort of a big challenge in itself. But you know, sort of quit whilst you're ahead, kind of thing. You know, if it's not working, it's not the end of the world. You can go again with something else. I have done. Oh gosh, what else? Yeah, don't be. This sounds really negative, but it's actually been a really key driver for me moving forward. Some of my previous mentors, people I looked up to, said to me about Positive Plus One, is it not time that you were going to quit and just continue on the salons route? Some of my friends and family, you know, falling out with me. I didn't have very good things to say. You know, when I feel like when you know that you've got something that's going to be, that's going to work, you know, do your best to stick with it and to see it through to completion. But don't also be afraid to take a step back and look at it from a broader, you know, point of view, from a higher level, and be like, is this working? And then, you know, from there, you just one step at a time, do one thing every single day, right? Whether that's one email, one phone call. Some days you'll do 10, and other days you'll do just that one, but that will compound in interest over the year. That's 365 things as a minimum that you've achieved in 1 year, right? And just that little step at a time makes a massive difference. And me personally, I'm not much of an early riser. I much prefer to work later, but plan your next day at least the day before.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and then when you wake up, you know exactly what you're doing.
That is a very, very valuable efficiency tool, without doubt. And it also, we found is that it also releases your subconscious for the evening. So when you get to sleep, you're not waking up going, I must remember, because I've already done it. We've told the subconscious, look,
yeah,
all sorted. So
yeah, I've done that many times. 3 a.m. wake ups with the gasp of breath, scrambling for a notepad or your phone and your notes, and then it's just not the way. Go to bed, plan, ready for the next day, sleep well.
Because sleep is so key for so many parts of our life. So bang on. And if you started again, Christian, is there anything that you think you might do differently?
Listen more. I think not everything is right, and not everybody is right, and not all opinions have that much of an impact. But sometimes there are golden nuggets. Sometimes you're not always right. There's no harm in listening. You don't have to take it on board. But there's certainly been times in my past where people have sort of given me a bit of pre-warning or have said, this or that, and I'm very forthright in my thinking and very strong-willed. So I do wish at times that I'd have listened a little bit more, because some of those things that people had said to me did come to fruition and did happen. And I look back now and I'll say to these people, yeah, you were right, and I can laugh at it. But let me tell you, at the time, that's not how it felt. I suppose, I think I'd probably plan more. Some of my earlier businesses, I ran out of cash flow very quickly, and I was like, where am I going to find it? Where's it gone? Yeah. Get yourself somebody who's a wizard with a spreadsheet. That definitely helps. And gosh, what else would I say to myself? Sleep more. Probably sleep more. I burnt out multiple times, and it's I think the first time I did it, it probably took me out for about 3 weeks, and then I thought I was getting good at it because I managed to narrow that down to sort of 10 days, and then getting good at burning out, which is ridiculous. But then I and then but sort of knowing. Trying to get yourself into that circadian rhythm, and you don't have to get up with night, and you don't have to get up when the sun rises and then go to sleep when the sun sets. That's not applicable for everybody. As great as that might sound, just not the case. But trying to get yourself into some sort of rhythm certainly helps, and give yourself a rest, give yourself that pat on the back when you need to, because it's going to pay its dividends, further down the line, because burning out is not the one.
No. Brilliant. Well, Christian, thank you so much. It's been very enlightening and very, I'm just very enthusiastic about everything that's going on with you. And I know we're looking at some amazing successes over the next few months and years. And as I said, it'd be great to swing back and check in on you and how things are going. And if anybody wants to contact you, including a content manager or a data scientist or anyone that's interested in what you're doing, or even in any investors, what would be the best way of contacting you?
It's Christian with a CH at positive+1, which is all alphanumerical. So Christian at positive+1.com. Or failing that, reach out to Chris. Chris can pass you on my details. It's not a problem. But I'd love to hear from people. Any questions that you've got, please fire away.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon.
No problem.
Thank you. There we go. Sorry, it's different on this. Hold on.
No, it's all right.
Stop recording. There we go. Stop recording.